Hi guys, we're back. In this video we're going to do some house cleaning or just clean up some stuff here. And we're also going to do lower is better items, which is different than higher is better. And I'm also going to refreeze my panes first because when I scroll side to side it's fine, but when I scroll up and down I still want to see the headers up here. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to View, Freeze Panes, Unfreeze, and now I'm going to click on a cell that is one row beneath the last pane that I want to freeze vertically, and one row to the right, or one column to the right of the pane that I want to freeze horizontally. We'll freeze panes. Now, if I scroll to the left and right, this pane will stay frozen. If I scroll up and down, these panes will stay frozen. So with this, I have a bunch of extra columns here, and I'm just going to remove them because I don't need them. It'll make scrolling and everything like that easier. I only need one column of separation in between each item. And then that'll also get rid of all the yellow stuff, I think, between everything else. Let's just clean this up. Cleaning this up a little bit. And you can probably just fast forward through this if it's not something that you want to do. I like less scrolling. For me, the less scrolling, the better. So we didn't really know what this would look like. And now that we have all of our metrics identified and all the means that we're collating that information identified, I just like to have it clean and organized, even though it still looks ugly. At least I have a better sense of what's going on. Usually I'll even outline the sections when I'm all done with them and make it nice and easy to navigate within, so that it won't be difficult for me to do some things. All right, we're almost there. Almost there. This is the last category, I think. And then right after this, I'll jump into the how to do the lower is better stuff, and it's tedious. It is, but all this stuff is pretty tedious to get the scores in this type of complex format that we have. And you can make a decision as to whether or not you want all this stuff. You may, in the formulae that we use, you may be able to get around 90% of this stuff depending on how complex you want to get. So let's go back to our data and let's create another score. Creating a column here, let's move it to the end. I'll call this score 10M sprint. Now I'm going to copy the formula that's here that we did for Wingate relative peak power and paste it here. Now the first things that we need to do are make all the greater than signs that we see less than signs and vice versa. So I'm going through the code that we have written here, and it looks like we have two more. So we have two more. And you know what? All right, I'm just going to click enter. And we're going to leave that for now. One thing that I just realized is that if you want this to be a little bit more clean, like so, you see all this sheet? When we look at the score panel, it has quotes around it. We can get rid of those quotes by making it one word. So I'm just going to change this to score panel without a space. And now if I go back to my data, those quotes are gone. It makes it a little bit easier to read, not by much, but at least a little bit. So now the next step is we're just going to do the same find replace thing that we did before. So with Wingate relative peak power, we have some letters here, and we need to change them. Let's go to our score panel, and let's go to Wingate relative peak power, which is right here. We have AE, AF, AH, and AI. So we need to change all of these, all those letters in our formula to be BS, BT, BV, and BW. STVW. Let's remember that. Maybe I'll write them down here. BS, BT, BV, and BW. Now we have a couple changes that we need to make. So let's first start with the easy one, which is we need to change this metric here to whatever our metric is called in our table for sprint time. So I think I've already set this up. So you'll find that the column header name is 10M sprint with an S, like that, and we're replacing those two things. I'll do that. Now we notice that we're now looking at 10-meter sprints and not the Wingate. So now let's replace AE, or the first letter in the A sequence, with the first letter in our sequence. So let's go find and replace AE with $BS. Probably replace those. AE, F is next, AF with BT. AF with BT. And then we have AH and AI. So AH with BV, AI with BW. So let's select all of our cells. AH, BV, and AI with BW. Now we're almost there. The last thing that we have to do is change these minus ones into positive ones. 1 and 1, and I'll click enter. And now we have 10-meter sprints. I don't remember if I did do them, but I also paused the video and did them again because I must have copy and pasted something weird. But make sure that your signs here are 10-meter sprint less than this, greater than this, less than this, and greater than this. So I'm going to click enter, and let's just test to see if this worked okay. I'm going to hide everything except for the 10-meter sprint time column, and we can check, and then I'll also hide everything except for the group column because those are the things that we use. So what I can see is that for someone in the U18 group, a 1.46 10-meter sprint time will get a score of 84. Let's check and see how accurate that is. Remember, we're in the U18 group. U18 group, and we're looking for, which is right here, we're looking for 1.46. Let's go down. 1.46 between 83 and 84. So it's working fine. And let's check the other group. So now we have a 0. 1.85 is a 0 for U20 group. Let's check, make sure that's right. So the U20 group, which is here, let's scroll down. Yeah, 1.84 is greater than, wait, that was a number, right? 1.85 is greater than the value that we set here. And if we change it to be a lower value, let's say right now we're looking at arbitrary values. If we set, oh man, these should be yellow so that I know that we can edit them. Let me do that really quickly. Did I delete something? Oh, I didn't even do it here. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to highlight these cells and make all this stuff yellow for now. Doesn't really matter. We'll figure it out later, or we'll organize it later. All right, speed, 10 meter. So if I set this arbitrary good, bad cutoff value to, let's say, 2.0, scroll down to the bottom. Now a 1.85 should get about a 20 or 21 score instead of a 0 score. Go back to my data. There we go. We got a 21 score. So it's working. Remove those. And all on my own time, not on your time, I'm going to clean this up a lot, just visually, so that I understand what's going on. And let's do another one of these. The lower is better. Let's unhide all this stuff. Generally, I'll do, because it's easier to follow the letters and I know what's going on, is I'll do everything in one category and everything in another, but just with the way that these worked out. Oh, I replaced the Wingate score. That was stupid. I didn't mean to do that. Darn. Okay, that's why the number signs had to be changed again. So I'm gonna do score 20M sprint to show another example of how to do a lower is better one. And again, I'll do the rest of these and I'll provide you with the file. So this is just to show how we do this. 10-meter sprint, we're looking at CBCC, CECF, CB, so also BCEF, BCEF, CECF, CBCC, CECF. So let's copy this formula. Now that we have it right, we can paste it in there. The first thing that we're going to do, since we're pasting a lower is better to a lower is better, we don't have to do as much. The first letter that I see, BT, and then it's, BS, and then BT. So we'll do CB, then CC for those two letter schemes. Find replace BS with CB. And we got BT with CC. And then we have, let's check what we have here, BV and W. So BV, I could have just kept the letters here. Honestly, that's probably the best way to go, is just keep all the letters aligned, so then you know immediately what to replace with what if you're doing it this way. But we have BV with BV and BW, so let's go BV with CE, and then BW we'll replace with CF. And now the last thing that I have to do is change the metric that I'm looking at. Let's look at the name of, so it's the same thing, 10M sprint with 20M sprint. So I copied that, and now if I go here, I'm going to replace 10M sprint with 20M sprint, and I'll click replace all. And now let's just check this really quickly before I go off and do the rest of these things. So here we have a score of 53. Let's check it to make sure that it works. I'm just going to hide everything except for 20M sprint and the group so that I can see what's going on a little bit easier. For U18, a 3.05 should be about a 53 score. So we're on the U18. Let's go down to 3.05. 3.05. Yep, is between a 52-53 score. Cool. Now for U20, let's pick someone else. A 3.54 for U20 should be about a 12 score based on what our criteria. What was it? It was 3.54. So if we go to the U20s, which is right here, 3.54 should be about a 12. 3.54, yep, between 11 and 12. Perfect, so it's all working. I am going to pause the video now, and I'm going to fill out the rest of these, and you'll get the file. And then in the next one, we'll do category weightings and things like that, which is actually the most fun part of this. But before we do that, we need to make one more consideration, and that consideration is what happens when there is no data. And before we, generally it's good to have fail-safes in here. I've been I didn't do it here, but we should do it now. So all these people are full. Let's see what happens when someone's out or they don't have data. So I'm going to filter my list down to out. And notice that these sprint scores are 100s. The CMJ best scores are 0, which is fine. But if I go to the sprints, there's just no data in there. They're blank. So we need to control for that, or we need to accommodate that in this scoring system. And it's good practice to do it for all metrics, even if you already have a formula in here. So for example, the reason why CMJ best is 0 is because we take the CMJ best from other inputs and we get a max value. And the way that the max formula works is if there are no inputs, it gives a 0. If we were to do that for the average, the score would be a 100, not a 0, because it's blank. So let's write it in this one, and we won't see any change, but that's okay because we're going to do it in all of our scores moving forward. So I'm going to say if open bracket CMJ best equals blank, quote, quote, comma, 0, comma, alt, enter to segregate it. So what I just said is if CMJ best equals blank, then give the score a 0, comma, if not, then go through with the process that we just outlined. And then I just need to add a parenthesis on the end here, and I'll click enter. And there are no changes here. We wouldn't expect there to be, but let's see what happens here. So if equals if, open bracket, 10-meter sprint, where is that? Let's find it. 10-meter sprint equals blank, comma, 0, comma, alt, enter to segregate it. Again, that's just a personal preference. If the 10-meter sprint is blank, then give it a 0 score, and then, or if it's not, then go through our process. And I'm going to close the parenthesis and click enter. And now notice the 10-meter sprint scores changed to zeros, not 100s. And we'll do the same thing here. So if open bracket or open parenthesis, if 20-meter sprint equals blank, comma, 0, comma, and then alt enter to segregate it out. So if 20-meter sprint is blank, make it 0, or the score 0, and if not, go through our process where we check the groups and give it a score. And let's close that off and click enter, and once again, we have 0 values here, and I'm going to unfilter that. And now in the next video, I'm going to filter through, or I'm going to pretty much breeze through all the other scores. I might just fast forward through them after doing a couple more examples, and then we'll go through the weightings and stuff like that. So great job so far, and I'll see you in the next one.